officially dropped the Greek from just
Oh, okay.
I'm just pointing it out to everyone.
Okay.
It's easy to get when you've done it that much.
Well, I'm just going to read it as I didn't notice it.
Yeah.
So that's all right. You could have a little quote here, about the offering. And I say, as your book keeps please flavor and flavor. Otherwise, I have to guess. That happens. You don't have to do
Right.
But I know that, someone says there's this much place. Some of them I'm not sure. Yeah.
Drove by yesterday when the church and stuff, taking a bike, and he was out there.
One of our laymen many years ago, he gave a demonstration of how to work at it. And I got tired of watching it. I think that's
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I was just thinking about that. I'll remember it the first one.
No, that's like the person.
I missed before that.
Yeah. So you really
Ring a bell or something.
China, you'll bring it back.
One bell.
Yeah. Unless people are fighting down.
tell me about that.
Good morning. Welcome to the Auburn Unitarian Universalist Fellowship, located on occupied ancestral land of the Muscogee Nation and housed in a building constructed by free, formerly enslaved African Americans. My name is Jerry McCurry, and I will be your service associate today. Welcome to this morning, this day, and this opportunity to be together, which is a time of joy, comfort, and sometimes challenges. This Unitarian Universalist congregation is a place where we come to learn more about being human. We're not here because we figured out life's questions or because we think we got it right. We come here to learn more about being in relationship together, how to listen, how to forgive, how to be vulnerable, and how to create trust and compassion in one another. I call your attention to the announcements that are printed on the back of the order of service. Please read these important information about fellowship life. Spoken announcements will be heard at the end of the service. On behalf of the members of the fellowship, I extend a special welcome to all visitors who are joining us for the first time, and for those of you who still feel like visitors. If you have not already done so, please fill out our visitor book at the front of the greeters, or digitally by visiting auuf.org/visitor. You may also contact our minister, Reverend Chris Rothbauer, at minister@auuf.org with any questions or concerns you may have. As we prepare for our service this morning, please remember to turn off your phone and any other electronic devices you may have. Let us move into the service willing to be authentic with each other, honest within ourselves, and open to connections in all forms.
Our opening words this morning are from Linda Susan Ulrich. Open up the doors, push on looming wooden arches embroidered with ironwork, brace shoulders against the weight of history unmoved, slough off the musty smell of unused joy and stored up sorrow. Knock, rust off the hinges if you have to, and let your breath precede you inside. Open the doors more. Make room for a shaft of sunlight to cross the threshold. Give the door moats something to dance about. Peek through a single slice of possibility and name even the half-hidden truths you see. Open the doors wider still. Pour yourself through the gap. Strut or sneak or sidle as suits your bed. Cleanse whatever scrapes catch your skin and bind up the wounds that keep you from entering whole. Open the doors as far as they will go. Draw on the strength of the stones beneath you. Ground yourself in a firm sense of who you are. Stand as a beacon welcoming the next seeker, and shine far beyond the lintel and sill. Open all that you are. Heighten and deepen your connections to the world around you. Broaden your definition of neighbor. Grow into the largest target for grace that you can muster, and pray to become a gateway for even greater love and compassion. Open up the doors, my friends, lest we keep the stranger out and condemn ourselves to prisons of our own making.
We light our chalice this morning with these words from Tracy Bleakney. This chalice burns with twin flames. This flame burns for those who seek and defend the right to be a free and responsible search for truth and meaning, so that each person may live according to conscience in a democratically elected society. This flame burns for the defenders of freedom, working against those who would impose their own religious beliefs on others through intimidation or legislation. May we tend this fire always, ever vigilant and courageous in the struggle for freedom and justice for all. As is our tradition, we also light a candle in solidarity with those families separated at our southern border. Our opening hymn is number 170 in the Gray Hymnal, "We Are a Gentle People."
We are a gentle, angry people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a gentle, angry people, and we are singing, singing for
ways we proclaim the worth and caring of our community is by sharing our joys, concerns, and milestones. If you are joining us virtually, we invite you to type your joy, concern, or milestone in the YouTube chat box during the music for meditation. We invite those with unspoken joys, concerns, or milestones to come one at a time, drop a pebble into our communal bowl during the music meditation. Spoken joys and concerns will be invited following the music. Gotta be quick around here. I invite you, if you have a spoken joy, concern, or milestone, to come forward one at a time and briefly share it into the microphone. To help maintain social distancing, please don't line up, but come forward after the last person has left the microphone.
Two joys. One, thank you to everyone who came out to Cosmic Connection yesterday and helped us in tabling the Pagan Pride Day event. We got to talk to a lot of really interested people, so thank you to everyone who helped out with that. And the other joy is I hope you'll all join me in welcoming a new staff member who starts this morning. Catherine Mansfield will be helping us out in childcare, so I hope you'll make her all welcome and get to know her.
I have a bit of a concern this morning. This week my father found out he's got a detached retina, so he's going in for surgery this week, and yeah, hopefully it all heals up soon, but any prayers or good thoughts are appreciated.
We'll just right this second had to thank Andrew for that nice piece of Grateful Dead in the morning. But the real joy was to see the quilt back up where it should be. And, you know, it's the heart of the fellowship, should be up front. And also for those who don't know all about the story, go to the website. Every square has its own story. So thanks.
Jerry, Chris, everybody. Joy this morning is that I've hooked up with Reverend Darcy and Dr. Kelly and Demarius in their study, Bible study on Thursday nights. And the concern, I know y'all know about Queen Elizabeth's death, but the other concern that I had that I was going to raise, I've been asked to volunteer, and I've accepted a little responsibility to become part of a crime victims response team. It's part of Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense and also Faith in Action, several chapters in Alabama, which we're going to be helping them get justice and compensation, and also to provide shoulders to cry on. So keep those people in mind. Thank you.
Thank you for all who shared their joys, concerns, milestones this morning. And Isaac, I've had that surgery. I'll give you some insight. May all the joys, concerns, and milestones for this community, those shared aloud and those held in silence, be received with the care and concern of all present. Our moment for all ages today is led by our coordinator of religious exploration, Angela Farmer.
I would like to invite anybody who would like to come up here and join us. Young, old, in the middle. Hey, Fred. Hi. How are you this morning? Good. Me too.
There's some other kids.
There's some other kids. Yeah, I'm gonna wait for them.
They're coming.
While I'm waiting for the other kids, I'm gonna let everyone know that I wasn't really able to find sorbet the way I thought I would, so we were gonna have some Italian ice outside after the service for our RE registration drive. If you would like to know more about our RE program. What? You were at the zoo? Okay, I would love to talk about you being at the zoo. So if you would like to know more about the program, or if you'd like to sign your child up for the program, meet us out in the playground. Well, actually, we're going to be on the porch because it's raining. But today, I'm really happy. You know why I'm so happy? Because we have the fourth principle. Does anybody know what the fourth principle is? Grown-ups can answer too. It is the free and responsible search for truth. What does that even mean? What does free mean? You think that you're being set free? Does everybody agree? Yeah, very good. How about responsible? And so I'm gonna light this candle while we talk about it, because I'm so trying to celebrate it. Okay. How about responsible? What does responsible mean? Grown-ups can answer.
Taking the initiative to do this search for truth yourself instead of somebody else. Make sure you do it.
I have two candles actually. And so, yeah. So while we talk about, the free and responsible search for truth is something that we all have as Unitarian Universalists, something that we put a lot of value in, right? And back in the old days, in the philosophical days, there was this guy who was, he would like to hold a candle up to people's faces and try to find an honest man somewhere. I know. Oh, did I do something? I just ate the wax. Did I eat the wax?
Yeah, I saw you eating.
But do you know that was wax? I have to choose to move that. Bit off more than I can actually choose. Honestly did that. Who thinks I actually ate a candle? I did. I did not eat a candle.
Oh, is that a cookie?
Who would have thought that I had one candle up here that was made out of radish? You thought that? Yeah, you might. You might look at them from the outside and think that they're the same on the inside. And you might look at them from the outside and be like, I know that Angela, she's tricksy. She got something other than water. She's got something other than a candle going on up there. And that is part of the free and responsible search for truth. Is that we don't just look at it from the outside and say, oh, I know exactly what's going on there. I don't need to look any further than that, because it could surprise you, and it could be something kind of yummy. What do you think about that? Just like some Italian ice that we're going to have later is going to be pretty yummy. Yeah? Yeah.
I had strawberry apples.
Did you? Oh, I want to hear all about it. You want to blow this out for me, little friend, little partner? Who would like to join me outside? Yes, okay.
I'll get it in just a second. I just want to put this up. Hey, Freddie.
And you can come back.
Please join me in the spirit of contemplation in whatever way feels right with these words from Deb Cannon. I have made mistakes, and some I have even learned from. I am wiser today than I was yesterday, and hopefully tomorrow I will be even better informed. May I speak from my learning and not from my habit. If I speak from my habit, may I interrupt my words to start again. If I don't know, may I be silent and listen. Listen.
One purpose of Unitarian Universalist communities is to encourage all who gather to grow more generous in spirit and in action. This is the great end of all the world's faith traditions, to bring human beings closer to divine acts of creation and compassion. As is our custom, the second Sunday of each month, we take an offering that allows us to exercise that all-important generosity of spirit, an offering that will support an organization in the community whose values align with our own, that is doing amazing work in the Auburn, Opelika area. For the month of September, 100% of all unpledged donations in our offering will go to support PFLAG of Auburn and the surrounding areas. Founded in 1973, PFLAG is the first and by far the largest organization dedicated to supporting education and advocating for LGBTQ+ people and their families. PFLAG's network of hundreds of chapters, more than 325,000 members and supporters, work to create a caring, just, and affirming world for LGBTQ+ people and those who love them. PFLAG serves LGBTQ people in the Auburn and surrounding areas and regularly meets on the Auburn campus. Please give generously this morning as you're willing and able as we bring compassionate spirit of Unitarian Universalists into the world. To make donations via PayPal, please visit auuf.org/donate. Please indicate in the notes whether your donation is for your pledge or for your offering. If you are writing a check, please make your check payable to AUUF with a note in the memo line about whether it is for the offering or your pledge, and drop it in the offering bowl, or mail it to P.O. Box 669, Auburn, Alabama 36831. As your bookkeeper, I say, please, please indicate if it's for later the pledge. Otherwise, I have to guess. The offering will now be greatly received. This is a reading from Alba Onofrio, an evangelical minister, titled Christian Supremacy is a Front for Power. What is Christian supremacy? It is that co-optation, that taking of Christianity and using it like a wolf in sheep's clothing, using its language, sacred texts, and traditions to cause harm, to perpetuate domination, imperialism, racism, sexism. That mixture, that marriage, that unholy union between power, systems of power, and religion, we call that Christian supremacy, and that must go. People of faith need to take God back from the idea that God is about punishment, death, and harm, particularly against the most marginalized part of how we do that is by healing our own religious trauma and the spiritual violence that has gone against us as women, LGBT people, immigrants, and so on. We go deep into the Bible, the tradition, and the text, and without fear, we look at what God has to tell us. Then strategically, we work on where it is in the world where Christianity is being used to withhold or deny the rights of marginalized people. We work with activists, groups, and churches on the ground in different places around the world and try to make it better. We try to stop Christianity from being the reason why harm comes to our beloved communities. While the Bible may be the inspiration of God, it requires minds and voices of human beings to interpret it more meaningfully. Where my organization, Soul Force, we focus on something called the ethics of life. We're not a faith-based organization. I am an ordinary clergy in an interfaith tradition and local church, and most of my ministry is with LGBTQ activists and rights defenders. We believe that theology that leads to death is bad, period. Biblical texts that are used to lead to harm is bad, period. End of discussions. So what we do, if there is this way of thinking that says homosexuality is awful, and another way of thinking that homosexuality is a gift from the divine and should be celebrated, embraced, and loved. That would be my opinion, she says. And the same thing with trans people, immigrants, and so on. How do we decide between those two ways of thinking? Ethics is how we decide. We take responsibility for the implications of our beliefs. So if my beliefs as a Christian cause harm to other people, cause death, take away human rights and dignity, those are not justifiable. Those are not ethical beliefs. And the opposite is true. You don't need to be a believer in order to believe in ethics and have a system of morality that says life and equality and life abundant.
When I was an undergraduate, I attended a small commuter college in southern Indiana, just outside of Louisville. But many of the students that we drew in were from the rural areas of southern Indiana, people who had often never been exposed to anyone with a different worldview than themselves. People who thought that the worldview that they got from their community was the only way that could be. So it was during my junior year at university that the honors department came up with a great idea to try to break through this mindset. What if we put on an interfaith dialogue panel? Bring together people of differing faiths and have them say how they would answer various philosophical and theological and ethical questions. And it was a great idea, and I continue to have good memories of the panels that I was able to attend. But it was also interesting because every year there was at least one panelist who was extremely disrespectful to the others. And spoiler alert, it was never the Jew or the Muslim or the Buddhist. It was always the Christian or the atheist. And they seemed to go back and forth between years. One year there would be a disrespectful atheist and a respectful Christian. The next year there'd be a respectful Christian and a disrespectful atheist. Well, one year in particular that I remember, it was the disrespectful Christian year. They had gotten a minister to represent Christianity from a local evangelical church. And he came in with a chip on his shoulder like he was gonna take down that damned atheist. He didn't even care about the Jew and the Muslim and the Buddhist who were all sitting there. He wanted to take down that atheist and show why that guy was wrong. And in the process, he made himself look like a jackass. But I remember in particular one exchange. I don't remember what the question from the moderator was, but he decided to go on a giant rant about original sin, the Christian doctrine that everyone is born with sin, that we just inherit it simply by being born. And he was so determined to take down that atheist that he decided to speak outside what he even knew what he was talking about. He made the comment that his Jewish and Muslim and even Buddhist counterparts all believed in original sin too. I wanted to stand up and scream. Because even though at that time in my life I was identifying as an atheist very strongly, I knew enough about different religions to know that he didn't know what he was talking about. First of all, I don't think he even knew what a Buddhist was. Second of all, no, our Jewish siblings do not believe in original sin. They, in fact, interpret that story from the book of Genesis very differently from most Christians. And yet, he was so confident in what he was saying that he just expected everyone up there except the atheist was going to agree with him. They handled it very well. They handled it probably better than if I was on that panel. They didn't lash back at him. And in fact, he came out looking all the worse because the atheist just kind of let it roll off his back. But it was the first time I had a hint of exactly what Christian supremacy was. Because in that moment, he couldn't even imagine that someone from another religion might interpret a scriptural story different than him. Now, I want to start this morning with a couple of disclaimers. One is I won't be talking in depth about Christian nationalism. Christian nationalism and Christian supremacy are not the same thing, although they are closely related. And you can't have Christian nationalism without Christian supremacy. The second is much like white supremacy doesn't mean all white people are evil and bad. Christian supremacy doesn't mean all Christians are evil and bad. So as we're talking about this morning, I want us to keep that in mind. That, as we'll see, there are Christians who are also excluded because of Christian supremacy. In our reading this morning, Alba Onofrio defined Christian supremacy as the co-optation, that taking of Christianity and using it like a wolf's in sheep's clothing, that marriage, that mixture, that unholy union between power, systems of power, and union. So in other words, it's this raising of Christian beliefs to an unquestionable level, that they are the only way to be, and that they are superior to all other beliefs, in the truest sense of the term, Christian supremacy. Christian supremacy co-opts Christian beliefs, mythology, and rituals in order to control others. We saw that in the story that I told, in the evangelical minister who wanted to use the story from Genesis of Adam and Eve in order to try to control his atheist colleague on that panel. According to Soul Force, under Christian supremacy, the Bible and church teachings are the tools most often used to promote certain characteristics such as gender and sexual orientation as God-given and normal. So in other words, Christianity is, and this form of Christianity is normalized. So it is the only way to be. On the flip side, those who don't fall into the dominant group are deemed inferior, immoral, or even evil. And in this frame, harm can be done and be understood by the dominant group as justified, morally righteous, or even ordained by God. Soul Force says that when the most predominant and powerful interpretation of Christian doctrine and scripture are ones that perpetuate harm and violence against marginalized people, it is understandable how some people become hostile towards all of Christianity, seeing it as the enemy of human rights struggles. However, it is Christian supremacy that makes Christianity monolithic and violent. In other words, it is this co-optation, this raising up of a particular form of Christianity that makes Christian supremacy. And indeed, Christian supremacists will tell you that Christians who don't agree with them are not real Christians. In fact, it was interesting seeing some of the comments on my post about the vandalism of the sign. Some of the people who didn't know what Unitarian Universalism was and assumed we were Christian and let their Christian supremacy out for all the world to see, declaring that theirs was the correct interpretation, ignoring that little part in Matthew that says, "Judge not." Sophorus, Onofrio's organization that she founded to combat Christian supremacy, calls the making of Christian supremacy spiritual violence, because it does perpetrate abuse and violence towards people who don't fall into this dominant category. She says that whenever the language of God and morality cause damage intentionally or unintentionally to the spirit, authentic sense of self, or sacred worth of a person, this is spiritual violence. It leads to fear and self-hate, lack of self-esteem, destructive behaviors, and even suicide. And indeed, it delegitimizes less radical forms of Christianity in the public eye, making people think that a 2,000-year-old tradition that's never been monolithic actually is. It's an interesting thing that you'll know if you've ever studied any religion, spiritual text for very long. They can be used to justify just about any type of violence or any type of belief that you can imagine. There are enough scriptures that can be taken out of context that you can justify just about anything you want if you're willing to look hard enough. The Bible and fundamentalist interpretations of Christian traditions continue to promote the dehumanization of vulnerable groups of people. And politically, Christianity is often contorted to condone the inequitable distribution of natural resources and access to bare necessities. But more than that, it alienates people who are seeking solace in Christianity from what could be a life-affirming message. It forces dissenters to consider whether they're actually being sinful and not taking the Bible seriously. And it punishes dissenters through alienation. I don't have contact with anyone from my old evangelical days, and they never even reached out when I left. Now here's the thing, I could spend a whole half hour talking just about Christian supremacy and its effects on society, but I suspect, looking out there at you all today and who's here, that I'd be preaching to the choir a little bit. And sometimes that's fine, but what good is preaching to the choir when I would be just as good to turn around and preach to the quilt? What I want to talk about instead is the way Christian supremacy affects all of society as a dominant system of inequality. Because whether you're Christian or not, simply by living in the United States, you are swimming in Christian supremacist waters, even more so if you were raised here, and even more so if you were raised Christian. In fact, this year at Mystic South, a regional panel of pagans that happens every summer in Atlanta, there was a panel teaching pagans how to overcome the Christian beliefs of their youth when they convert to paganism. because so many of them get so hung up on theological language from Christianity that it's hard to leave that behind and see things from a new perspective, even when they leave. It's a recognition that deconverting from a religion, simply leaving that building, doesn't take away everything that's been ingrained in you for decades. It takes a lot of work to overcome our former beliefs, as the folks who 3 years ago when I taught how to own your religious past will attest to. Now, rather than preaching to the choir, I want to ask what we can do, because really the vast majority of the work of overcoming Christian supremacy will have to come from other Christians. But I want to propose that everyone has a Christian supremacy problem too. New atheism especially has a Christian supremacy problem right now. Richard Dawkins, Christopher Hitchens, and Sam Harris all argue almost solely against a Christian supremacist version of Christianity, the most extreme version possible. And let's give credit where credit is due. They all three do a pretty good job of laying out why that's an unreasonable position and even a destructive position. The problem comes that they don't see progressive Christianity as even worth taking a look at, even to disprove. In fact, Dawkins has gone so far as to say that progressive Christianity is illegitimate. That's Christian supremacy. He doesn't have to be a Christian. Nobody wants him to. But if he wants to not be a progressive Christian, he has to do better than disproving the evangelicals. It's assuming that theological positions that have been in debate for thousands of years have suddenly been solved by evangelicals. And it legitimizes the interpretation that Christian supremacists are right. Some even go further than that. Sam Harris thinks his arguments against evangelical Christianity delegitimize Buddhism. His reasoning is really strange. His reasoning is that because some people who call themselves Buddhists have killed other people, that makes them just as bad as Christians who once killed other people. By that logic, atheism doesn't have a leg to stand on either. I don't think it's very surprising for me, as someone who has left Christianity, that this is so. I needed people like Dawkins when I first came out, because I needed them to tell me I wasn't crazy to think there was something wrong with the Christianity that I grew up with. And yet, there wasn't much more further to go than that. There are many former evangelicals who experience spiritual violence and abuse firsthand. And while they don't need to become progressive Christians unless they want to, it is still Christian supremacy to only legitimize one way of thinking about a 2,000-year-old tradition that's, I can't even tell you how many branches it has at this point. In fact, many of the new atheists have ended up becoming tools of the far political right. Sam Harris is now strange bedfellows with evangelical Christians who seek to delegitimize abortion and LGBTQ rights and immigration rights. I'm not a Sam Harris fan, in case you can't tell. I'm going to get a little uncomfortable with you all for a minute, because I've witnessed Christian supremacy beliefs in Unitarian Universalism. Let me give you an example. A number of years ago, a group of Unitarian Universalists decided to create a Unitarian Universalist Christmas holiday called Shalaka. If you have any Jewish background, you might have already picked up on why people might have gotten a little upset. Because it is a complete appropriation of Hanukkah. But more than that, they put it smack in the middle of December. One of the ways, the subtle ways, that Christian supremacy works in our culture is by putting all of our, saying that the only holidays that matter are in December. Muslims have a harder time getting off for Ramadan. Hindus have a harder job getting off for Diwali because neither are usually in December. And even Hanukkah. Hanukkah is not a major Jewish holiday. Jews celebrate more Yom Kippur, but it's not in December. But I've seen this in other ways too. I've seen it in debates between Unitarian Universalists about the nature of gods or gods, assuming that God has to be an omnibenevolent and omniscient and omnipotent force. There are plenty of pagans who will tell you that their gods are not omnibenevolent at all. It's by seeing all religion as being the same, or worse, as calling Eastern religions philosophies rather than religions, because it doesn't adhere to the narrow definition of religion given by evangelical Christianity. The nature of religion has been debated for about as long as, or longer than Christianity has been around. And yet to see things as just one way, you don't have to agree with another's path, but it delegitimizes and legitimizes the evangelical path when we do. I don't think other UUs are being benevolent. Let me make that clear. I think there are many who have been hurt by religion, myself included. But I don't think we often do a very good job of helping people heal from their spiritual paths. We need more opportunities to talk open-heartedly about our paths and ask questions rather than impose definitions. Some of you who have been participating with me for the last few years in Chalice covenant groups, I'll get the name out in a minute, can say how amazing it is to be heard without judgment, without someone trying to fix or save advice or advise you, to just have someone hear your path and say, I might not agree with you, but I'll walk with you. I wonder, what are the ways that we can help in the healing of Christian supremacist worldviews? Where different theologies are affirmed, I think I've made it clear by now that I'm going to, every time you think you have me pegged down in my theology, confuse you by going to the opposite end. Where different points of view are honored and learning about what gives meaning to every one of us. And we need ways to heal from this spiritual trauma that psychology is just now beginning to recognize. Maybe the most powerful question in the world we can ask someone who doesn't share our point of view is, what do you mean by that? And maybe they do mean something as bad as what we think they mean. But they could also have a very different understanding. I could preach an entire sermon series about the way that evangelical Christianity has subverted definitions of God and theology and religion and prayer and even meditation. Maybe I will one of these days. But for now, I think that dismantling Christian supremacy means creating a world where all are valued, where there's room for progressive Christians, and where every one of us, regardless of our paths, are able to grow. It means creating a heart-centered space where people are able to find affirmation in life that they often don't get anywhere else, especially from their evangelical Christian neighbors. So I'm going to keep poking the bear with Christian supremacy in the hopes that the Christians will one day rise up and take care of it. But I also want to encourage each of us to start with ourselves. As the great poet Michael Jackson once said, I'm going to start with the man in the mirror. May we be the people who find ways to promote diverse spiritual paths and ways of being religious. And may we be the people who challenge all systems of oppression that would seek to bring people down. May it be so. Our closing hymn is number 1018, Come and Go With Me.
Please join me in extinguishing our chalice. We will find the words in your order of service. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. Give
these we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Please be our guest today after the service for a coffee hour here in the sanctuary. This is an opportunity to chat with people about the service and just how your week went. If you're not signed up for our email list, please make sure to do so to receive updates about ways to connect. You can find information signing up at our website at auuf.org/scribe. At this point, anyone who would have a spoken announcement, please come forward at this time.
Next Sunday is the third Sunday, and that's when Noriko and I are, as Diana's pantry. Oh, thank you, Rob. Thank you. All right. Next week is the third Sunday, and as the Diana's Pantry representatives, Noriko and I are encouraging you to bring any canned goods for distribution to the folks who are recipients of Diana's Pantry's goods. The basket's right up there. And Noriko has coordinated a list of specific items. We're not looking to gather a whole bunch of stuff that has to be stored. There's specific items that our recipients have said that they would like, and they will be distributed to those members, those folks, the very day that they're donated. So please take a list of the foodstuffs that we're looking for. When you're shopping this week, pick up a couple of things, put them in the basket, and financial donations are always welcome for Diana's Pantry too.
Alabama Arise is a statewide member-led organization that fights for the economically marginalized people in Alabama. And their annual meeting is Saturday the 24th from 10 o'clock in the morning until 12:30. You can attend in person in Montgomery or here in the Bush Center. I'm probably going to be set up on Zoom, but I'll check with everyone before the meeting to see how it's going to work. If you would like to be one of our delegates, we're allowed to have 6 delegates. I have about 3 or 4 of you already who have let me know that you would like to be a delegate. So I need some more. The only thing I really need is your name and your email address, and I can sign you up as delegates for AUUF. So please see me during the service today. Everything is due by tomorrow, so let me know.
Hi, I'm Kitty Fry, and starting this Wednesday and through the fall, I'll be offering 2 meditative practices based in Qigong and Tai Chi. The first will be a gentler type of movement that's really meant for relaxation and healing. And the second practice will be based in Tai Chi and will be involving a sequence of movements. So if you're curious about either of those or would like to join, starting this Wednesday.
What time?
The first one is at 4:30 till about 10 after 5. The second one, which is the Tai Chi, starts at 5:20 and will run till about 6:20.
Where?
Here.
This Wednesday.
Beginning this Wednesday and running through the fall, each Wednesday.
I would be remiss if I didn't thank the Service Associate for helping the angel out in preparing for today's coffee hour, or whatever we're going to have. And also, I don't know if PFLAG people would object, but I think we're supposed to have PFLAG's supposed to have a meeting Thursday here. We are. Okay, so if you're interested in PFLAG, the offering this morning was for them. Come join us. Thank you.
Please join us in our Sun meditation or benediction, which I believe is in your order of service.
Peace, peace,
arc of the universe is long, and we can bend it towards justice. Go in courage, for together we have strength to confront injustice in our daily lives and the larger world. Go in love, because a holy and generous love is both the reason and means by which we transform our lives. Amen. Blessed be.